I know I'm gonna get negative comments about how the fish trap looks, but I would have made it taller, and I would have made it look a bit nicer, and covered in moss, seaweed, sand, all those types of things. It's just a short, sweet example of how to build one. What it looks like, how it works, etc. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. But in a survival situation, definitely take your time. Make it work. Put a lot of thought into it. All right, guys. So this is my example of a primitive fish trap. There's a small opening there. Get this out of the way so you can see it. There's a small opening right here. Now, so there's no chance of him escaping except going back out the way he came. Some fish are smarter than others. I'm not going to say it works 100% of the time because it doesn't. But you put your bait right down there in the center and they will think this is, because you cover it in moss or seaweed, moss. There's several different things you can cover it, make it look more primitive. Of course, this is my backyard. I can't do an example in my backyard, but I can kind of show you guys how it's built. They're just interweaved and interlocked together, and it's a great way to produce a fish or two a day. If you can combine this with a gill net, with a primitive fishing pole, or even hand lining, and a fish box trap, crab trap, etc., you'll have more than enough food to last a day, as long as every single one of them catches one fish. The average human consumes anywhere from 2,000 to 3,500 calories per day, depending on weight, size. So if you're abandoned in the wilderness somewhere, of course, minnows are going to swim in and out of this thing. But that's great, because what do minnows do? They catch fish. So big fish follows a minnow in. The only way he can get in is that little door right there. He has absolutely no idea how to get out. Absolutely. So basically, more or less, the fish swims in, he can't get out. And at the same time, you've got a primitive fishing pole in the water, hand lining, whatever it may be. And then you set your crab trap and you set your gill net. Feeder creeks are a great place to set gill net. A feeder creek is basically a small creek that leads into a river, something of that sort, and a lot of fish swim through there, a lot of fish activity. So if you weight the bottom of your gill net and you set it in the water so that it doesn't get tangled up, you could easily catch 3 to 10 fish a day in a gill net. And with the fish trap, box trap, if they produce a fish a day, that's great. That's food. It's always important to go the extra mile in a survival situation to make sure you have enough food to last. Feeder creek is basically a creek that leads into a river or a larger body of water, and a lot of fish travel through there, believe it or not. And the more food you have, the better. It's always better to have more than enough than not enough. In the next episode of Bushcraft Survival Lifestyle, we'll be making a primitive box trap, because I don't like the snare, believe it or not, because you never know what you're going to catch in that snare. And I don't want to catch something that I won't eat. And I'm a very picky eater. I'm very selective. That's why I make sure I have an abundance of food. I cannot stress enough how important it is. Once you fillet that fish open and you pull the intestines out, check them for worms. If you have to, cut them open. You don't want to eat anything, with parasites in it. And that goes for anything. You cut a deer open, automatically you want to, check for infection from chronic wasting disease. You'll be able to tell for sure if a deer has chronic wasting disease, because it will stink really bad. From the moment you cut it open, it'll just be like, it'll hit you in the face. Another thing is when you're hunting predators, you want to check. Make sure if they're not scared of you, most likely they've got rabies. Um, it just gives them the ultimate strength. They fear nothing. Coyotes as well. They'll walk right up to you, attack you. In a lot of situations, if you do come face to face with coyotes, hopefully young ones, they're very inexperienced hunters. So they'll run up to you, they'll pull back, and they'll always try to attack from behind because they're scared to let you get the upper hand. But another great way to put food on the table is primitive box traps. Something you can make the door slam closed, it can't come back open, and you can even trap coyotes this way. Of course, it requires a lot more work and a larger trap. It is capable of being done. You can trap coyotes, you can trap bobcats, you can trap deer, which is illegal. Do not ever do that. I'm not telling anyone to go out and commit any illegal crimes or trap out of season. Make sure you're up to date on all the regulations for your area. If you're camping and you need a fire, make sure it's an open fire permit. Us as humans, we take a lot from the animals, and it's actually really sad because we forced them out of their homes, and that's why you see so many deer in neighborhoods and right in the smack dab in the center of town, and they're not scared of anybody because we've just forced them right out of their homes. And it's the same thing with coyotes, it's the same thing with bobcats, it's the same thing with bears. They're actually scared of you, but if they study you long enough to where they're not scared of you anymore, that is when you should be concerned. If you can take on the next episode of Bushcraft Survival Lifestyle, we'll be making a primitive box trap from sticks and basically the inners of paracord. So stay tuned, hit that like, comment, and then subscribe. Radio or anything else to survive, all you need is yourself, fire, water, shelter, and food. And that's it. That's how you survive. But if everybody had to hunt for their food, everybody would be quitting their day jobs. Survival is about quick thinking and comfort. Natural resources that humans need to survive, which is fire, shelter, water, and food. And that is, the basics. You don't need TV.